This is why I can't take Christians seriously when they say that their God is beyond human comprehension. Because according to y'all, this God feels human emotions like jealousy. I'm a jealous God, thou shalt have no gods before me. Of who? The other gods? He's all powerful. What the f*** is he envious of? If a king has thousands of subjects and he sees one subject in a corner worshiping a trash can, he's not gonna give a f***. And that king isn't even all powerful. Your God supposedly is. What the f*** is he envious of?
Let's talk about it.
If it don't match scripture, we gon' bring it up. Hit subscribe one time. This is Flavor Cut.
What is going on? We are back with another video. Today we are talking about, can God sin? Is jealousy automatically a sin? Or is there the right kind of jealousy? Well, today we're going to go over 3 different perspectives, but before we get into those 3 perspectives, I want to break down exactly what jealousy is, and is there a right kind of jealousy, or is jealousy always wrong? Let's go ahead and get straight into the video. Okay, so before we get into perspective 1, I do want to just give us a little groundwork, give us a little context behind what we're going over. So we're going over Exodus 34, and Exodus 34 is the perfect context for the whole God is jealous conversation, because it happens right after Israel cheats on God with the golden calf. So this isn't just a random, they wake up one day and God is just like, and I'm jealous. No, it's context. So let's go ahead and go down to verse 14. It says, you must worship no other gods, for the Lord, whose very name is jealous, is a God who is jealous about his relationship with you. You must not make a treaty of any kind with the people living in the land. They lust after their gods, offering sacrifices to them. They will invite you to join them in their sacrificial meals, and you will go with them. So this is talking about Israel cheating, and he's saying, yo, I'm a jealous God. You cannot be having no relationship with no other gods, because those other gods cannot save you. Those other gods are going to lead you to adultery. They're going to lead you to sin, wickedness, and all kinds of different things. So then the question we need to ask ourselves, is this the right kind of jealous, or is God insecure? So we are going to go into James 3, because this talks about the wrong kind of jealousy. So let's go ahead and read James chapter 3, verse 14. But if you are bitterly jealous, whoa, time out. It says bitterly jealous. Why doesn't it say, but if you are jealous? Well, you have to ask yourself, if it's noticing that there can be a bitter kind of jealous, that means, is there a righteous jealous? All right, nevertheless, let's keep reading. But if you are bitterly jealous, and there is selfish ambition in your heart, don't cover up the truth with boasting and lying. For jealousy and selfishness are not God's kind of wisdom. Such things are earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there will find disorder and evil of every kind. So this is saying clear right here. It says bitter jealous. And then it also ties selfish ambition to that. Again, in 15, it says for jealousy and selfishness. And then in 16, it says there is jealousy and selfish ambition. There you will find disorder and evil of every kind. So this isn't just talking about just jealous at its surface level. This is talking about a very sinful jealousy that can become sin. It's just like pride. Pride is not necessarily a sin, but becoming prideful can lead you to sin, right? So that kind of jealousy is sinful because it comes from pride and selfishness. It says it over in the text so many times. You pair jealousy with selfishness and self-ambition that leads towards negative sin. So then we have to ask, is there a right kind of sin? I think we might find that in 2 Corinthians. Let's go there now. All right, so we are in 2 Corinthians chapter 11. I was going to do 2, but let's just do 1 through 3. So it says, I hope you will put up with a little more of my foolishness. Please bear with me, for I am jealous for you with the jealousy of God himself. I promise you as a pure bride to one husband, Christ. But I fear that somehow your pure and undivided devotion to Christ will be corrupted, just as Eve was deceived by the cunning ways of the serpent. So this is Paul saying that he has divine jealousy for the church. It literally says, for you with the jealousy of God himself. So the Bible is not saying that jealousy by itself is a sin. It's saying that not all jealousy can be sinful. There is a such thing as righteous jealousy. So now that we've established that there is a negative jealousy, and then there's a negative way to be jealous, but there's also a positive way to be jealous. So let's get into our 3 perspectives so that we can understand how we may have seen it and what is the actual biblical way of actually getting into the text and understand what does God mean when he say that he's a jealous God. Okay, so getting into perspective 1, God is sinning because jealousy is always wrong. This is people that are very skeptical. This is their argument. And they're saying that the Bible says jealousy is bad, or the Bible clearly states that jealousy is bad. And when God says that he is jealous, he is guilty of sin. The problem with this argument is it's too shallow. It's too surface level. And it's basically treating the word jealousy as if it has one meaning or it only has one type of context. That would be like saying anger, right, is always sin. So being angry is not sinful on its own. It's what do you do with the anger that makes you sin. So it's just like having pride. Pride isn't necessarily a sin. Just like boasting. Boasting isn't necessarily a sin, but what are you boasting in? Are you boasting in yourself, or are you boasting in the works of God? Are you declaring the testimony? Are you sharing the gospel? So there's different ways of using these things that God has given us as far as our emotions and what we feel. What we do with those emotions determine whether what we feel is sinful or not. It's the foundation of where the jealousy is coming from that determines, is that jealousy sin? So we can clearly state that this first perspective definitely fails. We're going to hit a fat X on this one because it does not make biblical distinctions like the Bible does. So let's move on to perspective number 2. Okay, so moving on to perspective number 2. It says God is jealous because he is insecure or needs attention. This is another view that I don't necessarily understand. Because it's saying that, oh, I need attention, or I need worship, or I'm threatened by other gods. And I wouldn't say that God is necessarily threatened by anything. He's not threatened. But what the Bible is saying, that God is jealous because he doesn't lack anything. He doesn't need anything. So he's jealous because he don't want us to worship other gods to where we cannot be saved. And to make it seem like God is insecure, well, we have to separate the different kind of jealousies. So if a husband is treating his wife right, and they're doing what they need to do, and he's always supplying for her, and he's helping her physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, whatever, supports her, he loves her, but then she goes and share that love with someone else outside of their marriage. Whoa, I mean, I love my wife. I would be jealous too. Does that now mean that I am sinning because I am jealous that my wife is sharing what we have? No. So then it's the same thing if I had children. If someone's harming my children, or someone is, just like when I got married, my mother was a little bit jealous of the fact that I was spending a lot more time with my wife than I was with my mom. And it's like, yeah, she wants that relationship. And I don't think that's sinful because she was jealous of spending time with her son. No one would say that. But if that jealousy led her to despising my wife or despising me, then yes, it can easily become sinful. Again, it's about where the jealousy is rooted. So this is not about insecurity. God is faithful to the covenant more than we ever would be. He's more faithful to a covenant than when we're not even thinking about being faithful to our covenant with him. So to say that he's jealous and it's coming from a sinful place, then you would have to admit that God is lacking something, right? Because being jealous of someone or of anything else outside of yourself to the point to where it becomes sinful means that you have to lack in an area. God cannot equally lack while being all powerful at the same time. So it's literally impossible for God to be jealous in a sinful way, because you can directly tie sinful jealousy to a lack of something, and God lacks nothing. So this perspective definitely fails, because God's jealousy does not come from some pity, argumentative, bitter place instead of a holy place. So we can deem this one false. Let's go on to the third one. Okay, moving on to perspective number 3. And this one says, God's jealousy is a righteous covenant love. This is the right perspective, because God's jealousy is not envy. God's jealousy is holy, and he refused to share his people with other idols and other gods, like I said before, that cannot save them. You cannot pray to another God. That's why it says in Exodus chapter 34, verse 14, it says, you shall worship no other God. You shall worship no other God. So we know that the foundation of his jealousy is the same as the husbands of, I'm not sharing my glory. I'm not sharing worship. I'm not sharing this covenant loyalty. And you guys are basically committing spiritual adultery to God by worshiping other gods. And for God to want to protect the things that belong to him, it only makes sense for him to be jealous, so that you can know that God is constantly pursuing you, even when you're pursuing something else. So when they turn to idols, God is responding with righteous jealousy, not because God is sinful or insecure, or not because the idols are in direct competition or equal compatibility with God, but it's because God is faithful and he consistently pursues what he has created. So a simple way to basically sum up this entire video is, sinful jealousy wants what doesn't belong to you. God's jealousy protects what belongs to him, right? So one way is longing for something. Like I said, God has to lack something in order for him to be jealous in a sinful way. That's impossible. So it's literally impossible for God to ever be jealous in a sinful way, because he lacks nothing. His jealousy is righteous because it is rooted in protection, not longing after what someone else has, or not longing for what he lacks. God created us, and God wants to redeem his people, and God alone is worthy of the worship. So when worship is given to other idols, God is not sinning by being jealous. It's impossible, because he created and he owns everything. So these other false gods that doesn't exist, they have no power, they have no type of authority. That's why it's impossible for God to be jealous. So I have to pick, which perspective do you lean on? I would have to say number 3. Because like I said, number 1 and 2 can't make sense, because it's impossible for God to be jealous in a sinful way due to him. He would have to lack something. So I personally think that, just because God does something and just because we do the same thing doesn't mean that it's sinful for God, because he is perfect in all his ways. There's nothing that we can do. If I'm jealous of somebody, I'm probably jealous because you got something that I don't got. And that's a problem that we have to fix as human beings. The real root of jealousy, like I said, is to lack. So let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section. What perspective do you fall in, and what perspective should you fall in? Go ahead and put that in the comment section. I appreciate you guys checking me out on this video. I will catch you guys on the next one. If there's any other topics you want me to talk about, please hit me up on my TikTok, hit me up on Instagram, hit me up on Facebook, or you can just put it right here in the comment section. I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.
If it don't match scripture, we gon' bring it up. Hit subscribe one time. This is Flavor.